Today, I'd like to discuss the matter of mental health. Uh, Colin Liddell responded rather intemperately to my video, and he referred to me as somebody who's deficient in mental health and who's spiraling downwards. Ever since my divorce, he actually mentioned my divorce, which was a pretty classy thing to do. And and this is something that I've heard before. I think that when you have when you maintain a certain emotional vulnerability, or emotional honesty, which is what I strive to do in both here, in my writing, wherever. I think when you do that, instead of just being, projecting yourself as being some unstoppable force or someone who's above it all, and so forth. I think when you do that and you open up about things, then you become that you kind of put that target on yourself, and particularly when you're interested in seeing beyond the headlines and drilling down from what they tell you in mainstream media sources, and looking at what the truth might well be, the truth that we're not being told by the political and media establishment. Whenever you do that, and you put yourself out there saying, here's this idea, here's that idea, and you are aware that people are going to just be dismissive out of hand, and some people are going to be dismissive out of hand. Some people are going to think you're a nut just for considering this, that, or the other thing, and I'm well aware of that. My daughter is a big fan of the band My Chemical Romance, and they have a song called "I'm Not Okay," and that's an example of the kind of what I'm talking about. This willingness to be emotionally honest. Now, you want to be emotionally honest without being self-indulgent, and you also want to maintain some kind of dignity, because I think that's also important, to present yourself as someone, and to present yourself in a manner that is dignified. So it's always a balancing act, but it's just because I've become aware of how it's not like Colin and Luke were the first ones or have been the first ones to say these kind of things about me or presume these kinds of things about me. It's kind of an easy thing to do. It's really a cheap shot, but I mean, you can't expect people to refrain from taking cheap shots, unfortunately. But I think that it's obviously just, it's part of the deal. It's what happens when you put yourself out there and declare certain things, and say, for example, as I did a few days ago when I before I got my main channel back, on my alternate channel, which you should subscribe to if you want to keep hearing from me, because I don't know what YouTube is going to do with this channel in the near future. But on my alternate channel, I recorded several videos about Anne Heche and her death, and the things that didn't seem to make sense to me, the things that didn't seem to compute, the pieces that didn't fit together. And that's something I've done about, several other stories as well. And I'm not claiming to be any kind of original. I know a lot of other people make the same kinds of observations. But I think there's some something about the combination of being a quote-unquote conspiracy theorist, or what Colin so cleverly calls a conspiratard, and also being honest about your life, being honest about things that happened to you, and how they affected you, how they have shaped your trajectory, your psychic trajectory, let us say. I was honest. I don't think I was indulgent because it wasn't something I talked about constantly. It hasn't been something I've talked about constantly. It wouldn't be something that I would talk about constantly. And I'm loath to field questions from people about it, But I have made reference to my divorce having had a profound effect upon me. Something akin to having the rug pulled out from under you. And so you say things like that. You open up about how you're aware of being a quote unquote low status male, which I've talked about. I even have a book about it, Ruminations of a Low Status Male. And you're somewhat honest about this stuff. Well, the ramifications of that are that people will take advantage of the vulnerability that you have chosen to show. They will take advantage of that in order to take shots at you if they feel themselves to be in a position to do so, or in a position where they are somehow justified in doing so. And I've talked about other things on this channel, and I've written about things on my Substack page and in my work that, generally speaking, some of which is, frankly autobiographical, others of which is, has an autobiographical, certainly a largely autobiographical aspect to it, even if it's fictionalized. And I talked about breaking up with my therapist. I've got that video a few spaces down. I think I recorded it a couple of weeks ago. And I'm a melancholic. I'm someone who has a melancholy temperament. I prefer that word to depressed. Depressed sounds more like diagnostic, and it sounds more like there's something wrong with you that ought to be fixed. Whereas someone with a melancholic temperament or disposition or perspective, it's not necessarily something that requires fixing. It's simply the lens through which you apprehend the world around you. But let me just also say, before I close out, because I want to make this video a little bit shorter than I've been I tend to think that in our world today, if I could zoom out of the micro and into the and take a macro view of things, I really don't know to what extent um, people really have possession of this thing called mental health. I don't know how much we can really say the so-called well-adjusted have possession of this commodity that's called mental health. I think because we live in a profoundly screwed up culture, an upside down culture where black is white and white is black and good is bad and bad is good. What I would call a demonic culture in many ways. This is not a culture that breeds mental health. Even if we're not talking about people who are screaming lunatics, but I just wonder. I have my doubts about. You can say all that you want about me and about my struggles and the things that I've talked about here. I have my doubts about when I go somewhere in public and I'm walking around seeing all these other people, even the ones who look really well adjusted, who look really happy. I don't know. I mean, I hope some of them are. I hope some of them have an awareness of eternal matters. I hope some of them have some kind of transcendent perspective on things that affords them the ability to to achieve what would be true mental health. True mental health, I think, is an awareness of who you are in the world that you're living in, an awareness of your mortality, but not not a feeling of being death haunted, but rather your awareness of your mortality is also your awareness of yourself as a spiritual being, created and fashioned by God. I really think, I'm not saying that you have to be spiritual, or that you have to adhere to religious dogma of any particular kind to be mentally healthy. I'm not saying that, but I do think you have to have some kind of awareness of of the transcendent, some kind of awareness of yourself, not just as a clump of cells, like the abortionists so charmingly call the youngest of us, but that you're more than the sum of your parts. I think that's the path to true mental health, to true spiritual health. And so, whatever you might say about me, whether Colin and Luke Ford and my other detractors are right, and I'm just spiraling downward to madness. Whatever you might say about me, I think the truth of what I'm saying still is valid, still holds. Whether how much of it is, how much I live up to that ideal. Obviously, I don't in many, many ways. But I'm working on that, with the help of God. We all should be working on that. So I guess I'll just conclude by saying I don't see mental health as like in a manner that suggests that, well, this person A over here has it because he or she is living, is behaving not abnormally, and this person over here doesn't have it because he's behaving erratically. He's screaming in the streets and I don't know, behaving like a mental patient or whatever. I see it as a much more subtle thing, just like I think Solzhenitsyn it was who said the the separation of good and evil. I'm paraphrasing. Runs through every human heart. Is a road that runs through every human heart. Um, so it's something that involves us one and all. So those are my thoughts on mental health. Let me know what you think below. Thanks for watching.